Hi, friends. Welcome to the Putting You Back Together Again show. I'm Rochelle Booker, aka Coach Ro. Thanks again for tuning in today. And we are talking about the controversies in the public sector school system. There are many decisions that have been made by school officials that have sparked outrage from parents, teachers, and communities. The children should be the first and foremost priority by providing them a safe environment, a quality education, support for underserved families, and a stable foundation that will enrich and empower them to build a better future. Many people believe that the controversial moves made by school boards and politicians are not yielding educational success or value for our children, but it's yielding political capital for politicians and their vested partners. Go figure. To help to better explore the issues in a public school system, our special guests are going to tackle some of our burning questions. So our first guest is in studio with me today, and her name is Tara Bowers Jones.
Hello, audience.
And Tara Bowers Jones is a retired teacher who has 30 years of teaching experience in grades 1st through 5th. During her tenure, she was responsible for designing and maintaining a safe environment for learning, classroom management, organization, listening to the needs of students, grading, providing feedback, homework, administering tests, developing a relationship with all students, documenting their progress, keeping anecdotal notes, tracking data, maintaining records, communicating with parents, and responding timely to the professional needs of the school administrator. Well, that's a lot.
Quite a lot. You forgot psychology.
Oh, that's even more important.
And doctor.
And doctor, yeah, because mental health is very important, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. Our second guest is joining us virtually, and that is Mr. Ranston Chandler. He is a native of Havana, Florida, and a two-time graduate of Florida A&M University, better known as FMMU. Is that FAMU?
FAMU.
Oh, okay. Ranston started as an elementary school teacher, then climbed a professional ladder as a school and district administrator. He is well known as a transformational leader that has led schools to academic success and recognition by many educational entities, with several accolades and awards for his work in Title I schools. He is a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Incorporated, and a dear church member of mine. He also is a member at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. He loves to read and travel. Yes. Great work, Mr. Chandler.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Both of you guys have impressive resumes, impressive backgrounds, and I'm so thrilled that you guys have joined us on the panel today to talk about a very important topic, the controversies in the public school system. So let's just dive in here, guys. We have one more guest, just so the audience knows. Hopefully she will be joining us in the next 10 minutes or so. But we'll let you know when she does make that connection with us. So let's jump in. What is your assessment of the state of the public school systems in Texas and beyond?
That's a good question. I recently traveled with a nonprofit organization on a learning tour to Cuba, Havana, Cuba.
Okay.
And our specific assignment was to look at healthcare and early childhood education. And what I discovered that Texas, globally in literacy, Texas ranks on the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Cuba and other countries such as China, Russia, Venezuela, Switzerland, Norway, rank in the top 10.
So they beat us out. Wow.
By 90, at least, I believe their rate was 99%.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was a awakening. And I noticed in the state of Texas alone,
Yeah.
in the well-being of a child, Texas ranks 49 out of 50.
And that's just in the US alone.
That's within the US, not
Within the
globally,
US.
but 49
Yeah.
out of 50.
Oh, that's
To
true.
say we have so many benefits and opportunities
Right.
here
Yeah.
and access to clinics.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps the issue in Texas is there's so many rural counties that don't. So there are clinic deserts out there.
Uh-huh.
I believe that is the problem
Okay.
here. And I think we could be a little bit better if our legislators would do better.
We'll do the
and
right thing.
Make us priority.
Well, thank you. We're going to jump into that about the legislation
I
and
appreciate
politicians. Thank you for that. So Chandler, can you also weigh in on your thoughts about the assessment of the school system?
I'm in agreement with Tara. There are a lot of things that we're missing, and the problem that I'm starting to see grow even more now, as you mentioned earlier about the mental health, and we are not equipped to address those needs. We have a huge teacher shortage for various reasons, of course, and because of that, and when the pandemic hit, of course, no one was prepared for it. And we're still feeling the growing pains from 2020, and then with this spike in the mental health cases and the need for special education services has superseded just already the achievement gaps that we were struggling with prior to the pandemic. So now you're talking about 3-4 times worse teacher shortage. I mean, it's so many different facets to why we are seeing the struggles that we're having in education. But again, I've become very, very, the mental health thing has become very sensitive to me.
Hang on, Chandler. We've got a call. Hang on, Chandler. Hi, caller. Thank you for calling into the Putting You Back Together Again show. Who are we speaking with? Okay. Well, we lost.
Okay. We're not going to talk, but we'll call in.
We're not going to talk. Okay. Maybe they didn't try to do that. Maybe they were trying to join the the audience instead of calling in. Okay. So to that point, Chandler, just want to circle back on that. Why is there such because I want to help us to sort of navigate this rugged terrain in the public education system. Why is it so difficult to attract and retain quality teachers?
You want the truth?
That's real radio.
I mean, of course, we all know money talks, and now that's one of the things that people can't afford to even buy houses. Like teachers can't afford to buy houses anymore because it's so expensive. So, you're thinking about a male who's quote unquote the dominant trade and supposed to be the breadwinner and take care of the household. If I'm only making $65,000 a year, I have a wife, 3 kids, daycare alone is what, $1,200 to $1,400 per child. So you can't even afford to do it. And then, of course, you have the certification exams now, and then the paperwork has become just overwhelming that teachers just cannot keep up, and that the burnout is real because it's like the requirements of even the seasoned teachers that have been there forever and a day, they're burned out because of paperwork, underpaid paperwork, and then now the mental health issues. So it's just burning everyone out, and just they're turning a cold nose to the field of education.
Wow. And then the children are hurting or suffering as a result of that.
A lot of the paperwork piece is a lot of the teachers have to do work outside of their contract hours.
No.
And
that they don't get paid for.
Correct. Which, I understand we are salaried.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I guess you can assume that we're kind of on the call 24/7, not really. But in a way, that's what it is, because there are times we need to talk to parents after hours.
Right.
We just want respect.
Right.
And
you deserve it.
Part of that would be pay. But respect to say that I did not get a chance to get that done.
Right.
I know the deadline was, today.
Right.
But I had 5 other things.
Right.
In the corporate world, I know that when you get a new project or when you have an assignment or something to do, in the corporate world, they have an actuarian that tells them how many people it's going to take
Oh, yeah.
and how much time it's going to require.
That's right. That's right.
In the world of teaching, when you get that extra whatever, it's due today, or it's due at 4, or it's due tomorrow.
Wow. And there's no flexibility around
No.
that.
No.
That's
So,
tough.
And
did I say correctly?
if I can
Yeah.
piggyback on when Tara talked about the paperwork, like if going through the SPED process, and I will say now, Texas is one state that in several of the states that I've worked in that has definitely, in my opinion, they have a very fluid system when it comes to special education. I felt like I became a guru here in Texas, understanding the paperwork. And as Tara said, that some of the timelines, I mean, the SPED, as soon as the day you identify that you're going to start the process, the clock stops ticking, and them 45 days come very fast. And if you don't keep up with those 45 days and all of the paperwork, because you have to have data to prove, I mean, there are artifacts and teachers have to gather those artifacts, and you have to have, the surveys. Like, it's a lot of pieces that go along to the puzzle. And again, if there's not someone who's dedicated to drive that process, because you may be driving a coach role, but then you got to go to somebody else to get the paperwork, and then they might be, well, I got to teach 25 other kids. I don't have time for this right now. And you like, well, and so I will say one of the things that I did do to help my teachers was I had a timeline for everything, and I gave them several reminders weeks out in advance to help them prepare. But as Tara said, a lot of it was done outside of their regular contractual hours in order for it to get done, and that's where, again, the burnout starts to happen.
Burnout starts to happen, and then teachers, many of them have families, children, husbands. So they want to try to have that work-life balance too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want to have a life, and they
Mhm.
deserve to. Wow, that's tough.
I'd like to also
Yeah, go
talk about the special education as far as, the state of Texas and SPED. The state of Texas lost a lawsuit, I believe it was 2022,
Uh-huh.
regarding the people versus the state of Texas. And the issue was children not getting access to SPED.
Oh,
Are
wow.
you familiar with that? They lost a lawsuit.
Yes.
The only thing that occurred there was that the state of Texas had to pay a big fine. Now, the
Wow.
TEA, the SPED department in the state of Texas, is still not right. It's still
It
not
still
correct.
hasn't been improved.
No.
Oh, wow.
I think they, in my opinion, just said, let's pay it, and so what?
And that's
What are
it.
they gonna do?
Wow. So,
The federal government sued the state.
oh,
of
the
Texas.
federal government
Yes.
did. So they
Yes, I'm
paid a
sorry.
fine or whatever.
They paid a huge
Oh.
fine.
And so they weren't forced or mandated to make any
Well, they
changes.
were.
They were.
But nothing is being done.
Nothing's
as
been
a
With the
done.
manpower to handle it.
Well,
A lot of there are
that's-
large school districts. I saw several large school districts this school year and even the previous year, but primarily this school year at the beginning, that had their executive directors of special education. Those positions were posted because people were not in compliance. Yes. So
Wow.
it's a big thing, and that's why. And so you add the achievement gaps from, of course, kids need to be tested. And then now you're adding mental health on top of that.
Mhm. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. See,
And we need funding
Mm-hmm.
to address special ed, as Mr. Cranston said. Chandler. Cranston is his first name. I'm sorry.
Ransom.
Ransom.
You're combining the two.
Yes.
That's okay.
Mr. Chandler.
Yeah.
The mental health is an issue, and teachers are not. Now, administrators will come in and make a teacher feel like it's your job to know what to
Yeah.
do.
Right.
And we've given you points. Those are just Band-Aids.
Uh-huh.
It is just to get by hour from hour. It is not it should not be assumed as a fix, because it is just trying to get past that hour
Right.
into the next hour, and hopefully we don't have an episode.
Yeah.
That's
unfortunate.
it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a big
And the
problem.
process to test them out to even get to what the root cause is,
Yes.
half the school year is gone.
Yeah, and listen, this is what I've never understood in the special ed program. We have Texas, the state of Texas or Houston has a wonderful medical center.
Oh yeah,
Now,
top of the line.
yes, we have Texas Children's here.
Yeah.
Now, most of the diex, I'm sure, those who go into that end in the medical field, I'm sure they do their practical work at Texas Children's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Mhm.
Why can't, if a parent sought out private assistance and the kid qualified, why does the school have to say, well, we need to test him too? I think that is crazy and time consuming when we already use someone at Texas Children's and the paperwork says they qualify.
Right.
Who's
Why?
considered an expert?
But isn't that undermining?
But the diagnosticians are down there.
Right.
Right. That's why I said no. I was agreeing with you saying that. I said who's considered an expert. So
Yeah.
why are we doing? It's like we're double work. I agree with you.
It's double work.
It is.
And so it's like they're undermining the experts, to your point.
It's just redundant.
It is.
And
a waste of resources.
it is.
It is. Yeah, these are some really great points, valid points you guys are bringing up. So, I mean, speaking to the point of quality education, which we want to ensure all of our kids are getting, not just here in Texas, but across the country, let's talk about that in terms of critical race theory. Why is critical race theory, first of all, what is critical race theory for those people who don't know, and why is it under attack?
Mr. Chandler, you want to answer that?
You want to start? We'll start with you, Chandler.
So you can read a lot of different things when it comes to the critical race theory and what it means and who it affects. But one of the things that I always say when it comes to when we're playing the race card, one of the things that we have to have are strong, dedicated, and knowledgeable professionals in the classroom, regardless of what your race is. If we don't have that, it doesn't matter where we are, who we are, what color our skin color is. If we don't have that in the classroom, and again, we could pull the race card all day, and a lot of times I kind of like don't even go that route because I'm always looking at what do we have standing in front of the classroom. Terry, you're a retired teacher. I taught school before. When I walked in my classroom every day, it was well organized. I was very well prepared. I learned my kids. I knew my data. Those were things that I was taught in my pre-education classes when I was at FAMU, in a very great and wonderful education program that prepared me for what I would experience. They didn't prepare me to teach in a particular school. They prepared me to teach everyone. And that is one of the things that the classrooms are lacking. If we are just 100%, even in the classrooms where you provide teachers with everything, because every district is not struggling. That is not true. Every district is not struggling. Every district does not have a teacher shortage. Those districts, I know some districts in other states that, and they're small districts that have, their teachers are making $80,000. That's why their teachers are in the classroom and not leaving and staying forever, because of them making $80,000. Of course they're going to stay, because there's some administrators don't even make that. So until we get back to having those, I'm from the country, so I can say the old school teachers that cared, that came in, that carried themselves a certain way, that even, we know we have social media now, and of course it's your freedom of speech. You can do what you want, but also too, there's a code of ethics. And so when you look at those things and what we're having in the classrooms now, we're causing a lot of issues for our children to not be well educated because the adult or the professional standing in front of them is not well equipped. And quite frankly, some of them just don't care. I couldn't find a job in my field and I needed a paycheck. So I'm here. And when y'all make me mad, I'm just going to call out. You're not going to fire me, because guess what? you can't find subs. So let me
Yeah,
come back. So,
it's a
know,
catch
yeah,
20.
I tell people all the time, my way of thinking about this is totally different only because I've lived in several states and I've been an administrator in all of these states. And so I've seen it. I always have this thing that I say that a school is just as good as its administrator.
That's
If you have
true.
a strong, dedicated, and knowledgeable administrator, and I'm not talking about just, oh, I know my data. I mean, it's a well-rounded position. You got to know your data. You got to know your staff. You got to know your curriculum. You got to know your budget. You got to know your operations. Like all of this is a part of it. It's not just one or two things. And when you have these conversations, people are like, well, I don't see it that way. Of course you're not. But it's just like anything that you are a part of, even if you are not the expert in it, you hire people who are that work around you that can help you make those decisions. So that is my take when it comes to even beginning with the critical race theory, the CRT, and knowing about quality education. We got to get some quality people in the classroom. But again, we got to provide them with some money to make them move toward this way.
I mean, and that's really important, right? Even with doctors and nurses, they feel that they're not making enough money. So it's really, it crosses different lines of professions. It's not just teaching, because there's shortages in the medical field too. So, and COVID was a part of that, the burnout, especially with the nurses, right? So if they feel that, well, the money isn't there to really compensate for the amount of hours you're putting in, you're going to have the same issue in all the other professions.
Yes.
So I don't think it's just unique to teaching, but that's one of the areas where there's a challenge.
Yes.
But just real quickly, the CRT, the only reason I brought it up,
Yeah.
because it's really become an issue and a point of contention
Yeah.
in communities, especially communities of color. Why are we losing the essence of teaching African American, Black history in classrooms?
Okay.
And why are administrators against
Afraid of it. Yeah.
afraid of it and wanting to educate students on the importance of Black history?
Well, what I'd like to critical race theory, just a quick small definition. Well, and for those of you who are out there, you can research this yourself.
Yeah.
It's basically it started in the late 80s amongst a group of intellectuals. They what they decided to do was track. They had a question: does systematic racism exist? Which the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And some of the data we can go all the way back to the 50s, or even to the 60s and 70s. We were talking about redlining homes. Insurance was more expensive in some communities than others.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing. So with that said, they decided to start tracking data. And that's all critical race theory is confirming that there is systematic racism, institutionalized systematic racism.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Now, I've worked in several districts. I worked in HISD, all Black districts. I worked in, multi-diversity or white districts, so to speak. And I do find it a difference in approaching Black History Month.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I've been the captain of Black History Month on several occasions in some of the Black districts. However, in the white districts, it's just that it's not one. They're comfortable with talking about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody else was born.
Yeah.
Those are the.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all you're gonna get.
That's your mama and your daddy. Nobody else exists.
Yeah.
However, from my standpoint, I always brought it in, and I was unapologetic about it. So I've always taught it when I worked in Sci Fair.
Amen.
And we've had skits in my classroom. Whether anybody else did it around me, I made sure it happened.
Yeah.
We had skits and everything. And I like to say, any ethnic group in my class, we celebrated.
Yeah.
So
thank you for that. And it looks like we've got Miss Delisa Franklin
great.
on. Producer, if you can bring her in. Hi, Delisa, can you hear us?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
thank
Glad
you.
I could be
Go
here.
ahead. Yeah, absolutely. So Delisa Franklin, she's got over 29 years of experience across PK through 12 educational continuum, and she is an award-winning career educator. So thank you, Delisa, and I love the fact that you love people and you have a heart for to be a servant leader, and your passion is to educate all children and to change the world one student at a time. I love it. I love it. And you came in at a good time because I know right now you're in higher education. And so I just asked a question about what is critical race theory, CRT, and why is it under attack? And I just want to give you an opportunity. Do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I did come in and I did hear our retired teacher, can't see the name here, mention a little bit of history about it. But, and this is just my honest opinion, I believe that certain individuals want certain aspects of our history just erased as though it's never happened. Because what amazes me is that a lot of young people these days don't know about the struggles that our ancestors went through, to get us to do something like vote, for example. And so with the critical race theory, I think it's just some sort of initiative by a particular group that they're trying to enforce to erase the history that we, our ancestors have gone through to bring us to where we are. But we're still a distance away from where we need to be here at this time. And that's what I honestly believe.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for weighing in. I really appreciate that. That was good. Good insight there. We've got to get back to a place where we're comfortable about teaching the history of this nation to our children. We can't just wipe it away, right, as if it didn't exist. I mean, African Americans helped build this country.
Absolutely.
And why not talk about that? The contributions that we made to building this country. And there shouldn't be any insensitivities to that. People saying that makes them uncomfortable talking about, but racism exists. It still exists. That we don't live in a race, we don't live in a country where there's no racism. Well, it's not colorblind.
Yes, the Project 2025, excuse me, I didn't mean to say Project.
Oh, okay. I was like, we're going somewhere else.
The critical CRT also, oh my goodness, I lost my thought. But it also brought up the fact, it also talks about colonialism and the impact of what colonialism does to history.
Right. Yeah.
And the whole point of colonialism is to keep us separated. Mm-hmm. So here we go. This has been going on since America's been founded.
That's right. Over 200 years.
Yeah. So it's as Martin Luther King said, it's in the blood. It's in the American DNA. So.
Well, we need America to be in someone else's blood, in the blood of Jesus.
Absolutely.
We need some healing, restoration, redemption. We need all that.
Yes.
Oh, don't let me start preaching now. Okay, guys, this is good. And I'm going to get off of this topic, but real quickly, and Delisa, I really want this question for you. So how has, the rollback of affirmative action impacted the enrollment of students of color in higher learning institutions such as Ivy League schools or other prestigious white schools? Have you seen any numbers or research or data on that you can speak to?
Well, honestly, I don't have data to speak to it as from a more national level, but I know that post-COVID, that enrollment is down across a lot of programs, especially in your HBCUs. I have friends who are actually, professors there, and I don't know if the decline is that they're going into other fields. I don't have enough data to speak to that holistically, but there is a decline, and I don't know what, what's contributing to that decline. I think surveying students, because I work in a very diverse environment, and enrollment is at a constant, but our online enrollment is bursting at the seams.
Oh,
And
really?
so I know a lot of these, the newer generation, they want to do, work from home. They want to, go to school at home. And that could be as a result of COVID. I don't know. But that's probably the most that I can speak about as it relates to why there is a decline in enrollment across higher ed.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was some tie-in to affirmative action and the rollbacks there. But speaking of going more virtually, I mean, we're seeing that in churches across the country too, where the in-person attendance is dropping off and more of the online worshiping. So that's interesting you brought that up. Okay, guys. Okay, here's another controversial topic that we need to get to. Why is the government imposing Bible curriculum in public education? Isn't this infringement on the First Amendment, such as freedom of religion? What happened to separation of church and state?
Well, I like to.
You want to tackle
I
that?
have something to say
go
to
ahead.
add to that. Well, I'm probably the oldest out of everyone here. And I recall, I went to elementary school in the late 60s and 70s. So my experience, I went to elementary school in Dallas, Texas for 2 years. We had, in my classroom, we had what we call devotion in the mornings. Okay. And so that would be kids up there with teachers, and they would have an announcement over the speaker. And we would say the Lord's Prayer and sing a couple of songs. And then, they would give a report about what was going on at the school, and we would move on. Now, we were more of a homogeneous setting in those days, because basically I think we might have had someone, everybody was a Christian, so to speak. We might have had different, Baptist, Catholic, and so on, but everybody was a Christian.
Different
and I want to say I enjoyed that devotion. I even know, I still remember a couple of the children's songs we would sing, the Sunday school songs. In my heart, and he's got the whole world, and angels walking over me, or something like watching over me.
Right.
I loved it. However, if I was teaching right now, I think I'm suspect as the reason. I'm a Christian. I'm suspect as a reason that it's being brought in.
Yeah.
Now the Bluebonnet curriculum is, I believe it was authored by Huckabee. I don't trust him. From Arkansas.
You're not alone.
I don't trust him. Okay. And I have not looked at it in its entirety. However, I've heard there's some flaws in it.
Yeah.
I, as a teacher, wouldn't want it, but I've never, in the past, anytime my kids wanted to say something about God, is they would bring it up, I would give an answer, and then my next sentence would be, ask your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was never afraid. Matter of fact, I want to be fired because somebody said something about Jesus. Please, because I know that door will be open.
Yeah. You're not ashamed of the gospel.
No. So, but I don't want to be responsible.
Yeah.
Because if something is wrong in the curriculum and then I'm responsible in saying it,
that's the
then
thing.
what? Yeah, you know what?
That's the thing. Yeah. Let's get our other panelists to weigh in. So Chandler, what are your thoughts about that?
Kind of like everyone else. Well, you know where I go to church, and so the different beliefs that I may have. I've had the experience of working in charter schools, and so there it wasn't. Children had a lot more leeway if they wanted to have, prayer groups, or they wanted even to create their own, if you want to use the term, religious or spirituality type groups. And, we had the autonomy to allow them to do that and not have any problems. Like parents didn't have to sign a waiver because their children made the decision to do so. again, we live in times now where there's so many things where it's like on the one side you have the freedom to do so, but then on the other side you might be in the news or on social media blasted about something that you said in error, and so it puts people in fear. Even when you talk about
Uh-oh. I think
public education, things that happens when these conversations start and people begin to say, as Tara said, you can say one wrong thing and boom, that's it. Like, and so it's one of those things for me. I've always said I've been a believer and I know who I trust in and what I stand on, and I always believe the scriptures and what it says that it will do to protect me. And so therefore I have to use wisdom in the decisions that I make for my school, for my students, for my staff, because the Bible that I read teaches us about having wisdom. And so sometimes just because people think, oh, I'm just going to say what I want to say. No, that's not using wisdom. So we have to use wisdom in doing those things and making those decisions. And so, again, it's one of those things that sometimes my friends say, you always streamlining and stretching. I'm like, but you have to think of on both sides how people are feeling about things, because these are the type of things that you don't want people to say, you coerce me to think this way or do this because of your belief. My thing is, if I live the life and you see the life that I live and you're interested in saying, who do you know? What makes you act like that? Then I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah, there you go. That's good insight. Jaleesa, you want to weigh in there?
Well, I know that I'm retired from a school system, K-12, and I was a principal for many years in an institution. My last principalship was at Young Women's College. I'm gonna say it, an all-girls school. And I too was a member of the same church where you all worship at another church now, but I've always lived my life in such a way where people would often come to me and say, my teachers would say, can you pray with me? Mm-hmm. Because I know, as my sister said, that if I lose my job for speaking the word of the Lord, then I know he was going to open up another opportunity. I kept a Bible on my desk. Mm-hmm. I had, my restroom where I would go in and pray. And so, if students wanted to start an organization, pray at the pole or whatever, I couldn't initiate it, but I encouraged it. Because by law, we can't just say, we can't initiate things, with the separation of church and state. But I know that when I would get on that PA system and say the announcements, I would have a long pause and I'm praying and they know what's going on. So you got to stop where you are in the hall or whatever. But I'm so grateful to God to be in a place in higher ed where I can lift up the name of the Lord, because every class that I would start when I was teaching residentially, the first slide was always that of a scripture, and then we would have devotional, and we would also pray before we end class. But what's troubling for me is this curriculum. And given, although it has been passed in the state of Texas, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so many others, the thing is, it has given districts the autonomy. And of course, many even attorneys don't want to touch it because of the freedom of religion and not wanting to force certain religions on their children. And, they don't want lawsuits and everything. But schools can receive an incentive of $60 per student. For the ability to teach the Bluebonnet curriculum, and I don't think it's something that's going to really move forward in public education.
Okay, because of the lawsuits, is that why?
I've heard legislators who are attorneys and my superintendent friends who said, "Oh no, we're not going to go there." Right now, I have a lot of friends who are in those types of roles, and they're saying that they're not going to touch that right now. I think they're going to probably wait until some things settle.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense, because and you guys hit on that point about the freedom of religion, because if you're Islam, Hinduism, you're Jewish,
Yes.
you're Buddhist,
about it.
because you don't want this pushed down your throat and forced to become a believer or forced to learn Christianity. If it's something that they don't want to study or learn more about, that's their prerogative. And I'm a Christian too. I'm a Christian too. And I love to evangelize. I love to lead people to Christ. But in certain settings, especially like schools and our children, we've got to have the sensitivity to respect whatever it is their families believe in and they're being taught at home.
Right.
So I see it as, so you know where I'm going, to Christian nationalism.
Yes.
Because so many policymakers and politicians believe that America was founded on Christianity, that America was founded on Christian values. No, it wasn't. If that were the case, why isn't the Bible mentioned in the Constitution? Why isn't God mentioned in the Constitution? Why aren't the 10 Commandments mentioned in the Constitution? If we were truly founded on Christianity, we're not. I mean, there are a lot of Christians here
Yes.
that embrace the religion, and you know what I mean? So we're starting to muddy the waters a little bit, and that's just not, that's misinformation,
It is.
and we're misleading people. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah.
About being, you know, cautious in implementing this type of curriculum and trying to force everyone to believe in something that they don't believe in or want to believe in. That's a choice. Religion is a choice. Just like you've got atheists. You can choose to believe or not to believe. You can choose to believe in Jesus or not to believe. So it's a choice. How can you force this teaching on people if it's something they don't want to accept or receive? That's my take on it. Do you guys want to weigh in or add to that?
I agree.
I'm sorry, I'm a little passionate about this
I
one, so-
agree.
so-
I did want to say that, I think that same, that Christian nationalism is the same feeling. Supposedly, we perfected the printing press back in, you know, the 1600s, and which made the Bible easily to be reprinted over and over again. And so, with that said, the mindset is we are highly favored, so to speak.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the mindset.
That's
So they think that those people who think that way think they can do and say
That's right.
and impose whatever they want
That's right.
because we are highly favored,
That's
so to
right.
speak.
Yeah, yeah. But weren't the Jewish people God's chosen people?
Well,
Weren't the Jewish people God's
Let's go
chosen
there.
people? Come on now. And we're
Yes.
going to teach. Let's make sure we're telling the truth. Let's not try to formulate our own truth.
And this belief, they feel like this is the new chosen people. They made that themselves.
Well,
Well,
Christian,
yeah.
yeah. And I know we can go on and
Yes,
on.
we can.
But Christian nationalism is basically political ideology, and
Yes.
it's cultural and political power that people are trying to gain. So I'm gonna leave that one alone because we can go on and on
Yes.
for an hour just talking about that. Yeah, because then if you start talking about that, and then how do you equip teachers to teach, you know, the
Yeah.
Bible
Yeah.
if they have no formal training or
If they're not
understanding or
Christians.
knowledge
Yeah.
and are not Christians or knowledge, how do you expect for them to teach this curriculum to kids when they don't
Yeah.
even understand what it means? So you start running into that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So what about, let's get to another hot topic, guys, around different controversies in the public school system. What about privatization? We see so many schools now that are trying to transition to a more privatized model where there's still public funding, but it's privately managed. What are your thoughts around that? Is it a good idea, bad idea? What's the upside and downside to privatization? Chandler, we'll start with you.
I was waiting. I wanted to hear what Delisa had to say first, since she's been through.
Great. I agree.
I wanted to
Well,
hear.
I'm not there anymore, and it was.
So that's all you really can tell us about it.
And so I don't know firsthand. I just know I came from a city where that occurred, and it seems to be working well. In Orleans Parish School System, it was taken over by different private organizations, charter systems. And so I don't know enough internally about what's happening in, what is it, the eighth, maybe largest school district in our nation now that has been taken over by the state here in our city, where I retired from. And so I really don't know enough about that. I'm more focused on the higher ed aspect of everything. But I hear things, but I don't want to talk about third party information.
Correct.
That's true. Well, my concern is just the research that I've done, because like you guys, I'm a research guru. And so I came across it, and it was really, really interesting, because the risk to privatization, or the concerns, is more on the side of the lack of oversight. Because how does it protect schools from discrimination, corruption, and fraud?
Correct.
Because it's about choice, right?
Yeah.
And giving parents, choice to move into that direction. So, but when you do that, it's privately managed. Is there going to be accountability when it comes to discrimination and treating kids differently? Back to separate but equal. We don't want to get back to that.
Well, I think I looked it up yesterday because I wanted to know truly, what can it look like? And what I did was I know that the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta is privatized. And so it operates like a private school that gets money from businesses. Now, part of with the privatization, I believe it opens up, you can do more things. It gives schools more freedom to do more things. For example, Ron Clark takes kids on trips. It's less red tape.
Yeah, less bureaucracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
On a logistic piece, I believe when I looked it up, it said that, for example, I worked in HISD, and oftentimes when you want to get a plumber, I know, right? Okay. When you want to get a plumber, something acts up. You got to wait 3 weeks for the plumber to come. Whereas if it was privatized, they have someone contracted for your school to come in, and you can get more immediate help. It's supposed to be more efficient.
Okay.
So
and streamlining some processes.
Yes.
More efficient.
Yes.
So that's the upside.
So
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Well, do they still get public funding, or what happens to like taxpayers that are paying taxes? Does that,
I know there, because when I worked in central office, that we had charter schools that they were charter, but they were connected to the district, which meant that they did have, as Tara said, their own evaluation system, their own appraisal system, their own budget conferencing, processes in place. However, there were still some policies that they had to follow under the school district umbrella. In order to keep their charter, they had to be connected to a district. So they did have more freedom and flexibility. Like if they needed to terminate someone, they didn't have to go through the process that we would in the actual public school system, because they had all those freedoms and responsibilities, and they could do things a little bit different. My only concern is the lack of certified individuals in some of these schools. I think will lead to a wider gap in the learning, and then how we service the needs of special education students. Because I sit in a lot of dissertation defenses where the research is being done, as a department chair at the university where I work, and I hear the research that's being done on how sometimes that could be a lack of support for students in these charter school or private run organizations, or either they have to go to their zoned home school that may not necessarily have the adequate resources to support the needs. So the gap keeps getting wider, dropout rate, the academic achievement downward spiral. So it has a domino effect. Because again, it's more about the money. It's not,
Yep.
where there are scripted lessons. You don't have time to reteach. So a lot of the autonomy is taken out when we have privatization.
Yes. And,
And I want
Go ahead, Chandler.
And I want to piggyback on what Delisa and Tara has said earlier, because I've had the experience of being a school administrator in both charter and a public school. So I've seen both arenas. And, when people are just so anti-charter, I'm like, nah, I think you need to actually do more research, because, again, remember what I said, a school is as good as its leader. And I've seen where we've received, being in a charter school, children who came from the public schools that were definitely misdiagnosed. We had children who were definitely undereducated. They did not have, some of the things that we would experience. And I'll be honest, when I moved to Texas, I had never seen the fight between public and charter so big in my life. Like, it's huge in Texas. Like, people, I want to go to this district, I want to stay in charter because of this. And there's pros and cons to both of them. And so the thing about, like, when Tara talked about Ron Clark Academy, what they do for the kids, see, that's one of those schools where they have people there who are well-trained, well-versed. I'm assuming, because I've not been there, that it seems like from what they are showcasing, that understand what the needs of the children need. And these are children who are, these are low social economic students coming from these backgrounds that are succeeding and doing very well. And that's why one of the things, when I talk about having quality teachers in the classroom, if I walk in the classroom, I'm a Title I kid. I went to Title I schools from K through 12. So therefore, when I became a teacher, my very first thing on my head was, my students will be successful. When I became a principal, my school will be successful. So that's why I've always been big on, you got to get good quality people in there that understand and has a heart and passion about what they do. Because if they don't, we're going to continue to see this issue, whether you are in the A-rated school or an F-rated school. It's still going to be the same.
It's cyclical. Yeah, it would be.
I just have a few things to add about the Ron Clark Academy. He has he recruits a homogeneous group of children academically. So he will, and the parents have to sign a contract saying about behavior. And so, it's not a public school at all.
It's not.
It's nothing like a public school.
Okay.
He's picking and choosing who gets to attend it.
Okay, so he's not getting any tax dollars, no public funding, no.
I'm not sure, but when I went to his website, he's got 50 million companies backing him up.
Wow.
In addition to Oprah Winfrey, she's second on the list.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So
she's got
that signature.
So the quality is different.
It's different. But the privatization piece, now you do need, one of the things that I looked at, you would need a bunch of so-called sponsors to assist you, because if one sponsor wanted to quit, they're gone.
They're gone.
So what about those funds? How do you need to have a relation person on campus to try to find you another sponsor?
Right.
So that's the downside of privatization.
And then how closely are they monitored or managed when it comes to the curriculum that they are instituting? Do they have more autonomy on the curriculum?
That is a good question.
Now, accountability.
Yeah. Now the charter schools in Texas, most of them, a lot of people are against charter schools because they are called the Walmart of the community. Because for the most part, a charter school that isn't funded with some federal funds shuts down between 0 and 5 years. Now that's the truth. Now, when a charter school is connected to an ISD in Texas, they last longer.
They last longer.
Okay.
But they're accredited. Aren't they accredited?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know with the ones that we were supporting when I was in the district, they teachers had to receive a waiver if they weren't certified, but they had like X amount of years to get certification. So that piece was no longer, it was starting to become obsolete, where they could have the autonomy to hire individuals who were not certified.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well, that was still true especially when there's a teacher shortage. I came in under the ACP program. I have a
Mhm.
business degree, and this was in 1989. Okay, this is when the kind of program started. I came in through the ACP program, and it was a teacher shortage, and they paid us to come.
Mhm.
Now the program is people pay.
Yeah, people back. Yeah.
The
Right.
participants pay. So what I was going to say is, it's just
It's changed.
it's still the same. You have within 0 to 2 years to get your certification, but
Correct.
you feel that the trend right now is to have uncertified, because the whole point is they don't want to pay a teacher. Right now, that's what Project 2025 is all about.
No.
They don't
And it's
want
a
to.
shortage. It's a huge shortage of individuals in going into teaching as well as principalship. It's
Yeah.
a huge shortage. I spoke to individuals at a educational service center, and I spoke to other university people from other universities. And I think with the new state requirement, the new PASL, that individuals aren't really going into principalship even. So there's a teacher shortage, principal shortage, and I don't know if AI can solve that.
Wow.
Oh, wow. And,
No,
and funding shortage, because the funds are drying up too.
Well, our governor won't fund our public schools.
Yeah, that's the problem.
5.5 million kids in grades K through 12
Yep.
haven't had funding,
Haven't had
adequate funding.
Haven't had funding, and that's
So-
another problem.
And so everybody's talking about everything else, and they're not making our governor accountable to fund public education.
That's right. So it just makes the system, system's already broken.
Well,
It just makes it worse.
And that's the point. They want it to fail so they can say it doesn't work.
So
And
we
about-
can go to schools of choice.
Yeah, backward privatization. See?
There it is.
You guys are onto something. Oh my goodness. And I know we're already out of time, but I do have just a couple more questions, guys. If you can just hang with me.
Sure.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys. Chandler, can you stick around for another?
Yes, I'm good.
This is a great conversation. Listen, audience, this is a great conversation, great content, great insights from our thought leaders who are very powerful speakers. If you guys want to call in with any questions from our wonderful panelists, please give us a call at 832-560-2885. 832-560-2885. Because I know there's a lot of parents out there with kids who probably just as frustrated as I seem to be, because I just hate to see the kids get caught up in such a broken system.
Yeah.
It's not fair
It's
to them.
politics. It's not.
It's politics. It's politics. It's power grabbing,
Yes.
power hungry politicians who are manipulating a lot of things. And we've got to stand for it, and we've got to effectuate change. We have to. We can't stand on the sidelines. We've got to have some skin in the game.
Yes.
We do. And so,
Ms.
yes,
Rochelle,
yes, sir.
Excuse me just a
Our
second.
producer has a question.
I want to make sure all the listening audience knows that we will be live until 7:15. If you would like to call in, like Ms. Rochelle said, the number to call in is 832-560-2885. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that's a good point. And then the next question, it kind of ties into that, is about the Department of Education. All right, so 47 and 45, he is talking about, I don't know how true this is, but he's talking about eliminating the Department of Education and the people that he's putting into his cabinet. So if the Department of Education is phased out, guys, help us to understand, first of all, the importance, the role that it plays, and what could potentially happen if it is dissolved.
I think our administrators can answer that, Ms. Delisa.
We're doomed.
We're doomed. That's it.
There are no other words that we're doomed. Like the governance, the governance, the compliance pieces, all of those things that come with the federal dollars that the schools receive in order to function and to manage. If there's no Department of Education, again, as we've used the word accountability, that's a key word. So if we don't have those things, we're doomed. Like, I don't even know what that could look like.
Wow.
I don't even think about what that could look like, because what do we just floating, and do we just go to a building one day and we wait to see if some money is going to appear? Like, what does that look like for us? And it's really, really, that's disheartening because, again, as we talk about all of the issues that were already on the table prior to the pandemic, and now we have added more
Right.
meat, cheese, tomatoes, and onions to it. Now it's going to be like OMG. And as Delisa says, AI cannot fix these things. I mean, these children can't read. So
Right.
they don't even
Do
what to
math.
put into the chat GPT to say, I need you to create a resume for me. Because they don't know how to spell resume. So what AI supposed to just go in their brain and say that's what they like. Yeah, it's I pray that that's just something that's just on the table as a scare tactic and something that does not happen, because that's going to be a huge impact, and it's going to be like us stepping into the pandemic again. What do we do?
Just a
And I totally agree with Ransden. I don't know what that would even look like, because the Department of, U.S. Department of Education, when it comes to student loans, students' ability, the title funding, especially for our, certain populations of schools that rely heavily on that, the accountability system. So I'm wondering if that would be filtered down and the states would have full control and responsibility on managing. I mean, this is my only thought process around that. And because I have not heard would take the place of it,
Right.
how education would be managed.
Right. That's what I have not heard. If you're going to get rid of something, you better be ready to replace it with something better.
And I'm afraid for red states to have to be in control of, especially if they're against public education. So
Yeah.
And a lot of schools stand on federal dollars. That's how they operate. That's how districts operate. So if we don't get those federal dollars, I mean, for real, like, y'all gonna be at home teaching y'all kids? Like,
Yeah.
you already can't buy kids
Free lunch,
as
everything is filtered down.
Everything's filtered down. Yeah. And then kids can't go to college and universities because their parents can afford to pay for it. So where are they going to get the loans
Well,
to?
Project 2025
Oh,
says no, we're trying to dumb down society. We want the powers, we want 2 levels. It's the caste system. We want power and intellectuals to do one thing, and then we want worker bees at the bottom.
That's right.
And there's no middle. So don't teach them how to read.
yeah,
Right.
have us be ignorant. But in the scripture, it says, I will not let you be ignorant. So God doesn't want us to be
That's right.
ignorant.
So,
But our government does.
well, God is in control. They think they're in control,
But God is in control. But
Yes.
they want to put this Bible curriculum. Come on now.
Yeah, you
See,
figure it out.
that's
Where
what
you
I'm
going?
saying.
Are you going to be on God's side, or are you trying to, or is it you? Or are you the God?
Coach Rowe, can you hear me? If you don't mind, I wanted, because I know Delisa came in late and she mentioned about the shortage in school administrators, and I wanted to hear her take on why does she think there's a teacher shortage as well as administrative shortage.
What I've read and heard, that I know with the teacher shortage, people just aren't majoring in education is one. And the other piece is that they're finding it hard. And that's just everywhere now across the nation. That's why, schools are moving to, rather not have a body, they're, putting in individuals who are, I've had the best teachers from alternative certification programs, Ms. Tyra. But they're actually, there are many factors I think that are contributing to that. And it's that we're on the other side of COVID, and people just aren't going into education because it doesn't pay a lot, as opposed to the cybersecurity and all these other types of degrees that individuals can think about going into, to make what a person in education has been making for 60 years or 30 years. They can make that as a first or second year, individual in that field. So that's one thing. The pay. Some say that they left the field because it's hard to teach the students, their lack of attentiveness and the support, lack of resources and support.
Right.
The principalship, they're not going into that. What I'm hearing is because of the stringent certification requirements here in the state of Texas. They're just not, they have to put together a project and so forth. And then, just the headache and the things that go along with school administration. They're just not, this new generation is just not ready for that.
Wow. And not to mention the teachers are getting beaten up by the kids.
Oh.
So the kids, some of them are
Yes.
unruly.
Yeah.
You can't discipline them. I mean, you can't paddle. I didn't, but my friends used to get paddled when we were in school. And that really sort of, that put fear in the kids, because we're like, oh my God, we don't want to go to principal so-and-so's office and get a paddle. Oh my gosh, my parents are going to be so upset with me. Now we don't have that. Well, a lot of times the parents aren't even at home raising the kids are raising themselves
True.
or raising their siblings.
Social media.
Social
is raising
media.
Yeah.
I know. So a lot has
Yeah.
changed.
Correct. And then teachers have to compete with social media. It's almost, you have to put your phone away, and then you have to fight with them to put the phone, or they put the phone in the pocket, but they have the real phone in their possession, and they're texting, and it's just hard to keep their attention. They want everything to be a game and interactive, and it's just a lot. So people aren't going into the field like talking about it.
And there are not a lot of Joe
Go ahead. Uh-oh.
Clarks anymore. Trust me.
And then, Delisa, to that point, did you see a lot of teachers also having to deal with their own mental health as a result of that too?
Absolutely. Yes. You have a lot of people who are in therapy. Right now, that's the big word. Are you in therapy? Are you talking to someone about that? Because I think a whole lot wasn't done during not much was done during the pandemic to support teachers and their mental health. I know districts had the employee assistance programs that they could refer to individuals to, but certain groups of individuals, ethnicities, don't believe in speaking to someone when they have issues. And so, I know God is first, and we can go to him anytime and talk to him about whatever we're going through. But, having that Christian counseling, or that person who doesn't, who can speak to you without judgment, or, that's something that, that's just not out there, for teachers. And I think they need it.
I absolutely agree. Now I also want to ask you guys real quickly about standardized tests. I was never good at standardized tests, but I was a good student. I always made A's and B's, even in college. I went to University of Houston. Go Cougars! And but I was horrible at standardized tests, SATs, and even the ones in secondary school.
Yeah.
I struggled with that. But I don't see how that's a good benchmark or a good barometer to measure a child's level of success or potential of succeeding in school or in life because of the test. Like, what do you guys think about it? Should we keep it in? Should we take it out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd like to just say assessments used to be in the field of teaching, used to mean that once we saw the scores, we use it as a tool to help the kids in the skills that they were missing. Okay. Right now,
It's for the adults.
yes, it's for the adults.
For the adults.
It means nothing for the children,
Oh.
and it means nothing. It's politicized to the point that in my opinion, some of the assessments that are national they are friends with them. So they in the state of Texas, they get billions of dollars
Oh, wow.
to test everybody
test
here.
everybody.
Yeah,
And you spend half the
the
year.
state mandated test is what I'm speaking of.
And then you spend half the year just prepping them, preparing
Yeah.
the kids to
So
take the STAR test and all that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so are they really learning? Like, And I'm not an educator, so I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, no, they're not.
They're not.
Well, if you were that kind of teacher that just teach to the test,
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
did.
okay.
But some of the newer teachers probably, because I've come through the generations of cycles of, and so I know what to do.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is, I remember the Iowa when I was a kid, the Iowa 9 test,
Mhm.
which is it's either norm reference or criteria based. I can't remember which one.
Mhm.
But for me, I like a series of various tests, one at the beginning, one at the end, criteria based and a norm reference test. Let me get that information and use it in my teaching so that I can help that kid pull them up.
That's good.
And that's all it should be used for.
Cool. I like that. No kid left behind.
Yeah.
I love
I mean,
that.
and as we can see in the state of Texas, I mean, we've not received a school grade since 2022.
What?
I wonder why.
It's huge.
I think, and then I think certain things are fabricated because, they want to show you, hey, this district wasn't as good as, and I beg to differ. Because of the schools I supported were just amazing. And Ransom, you already know my expectations. And so my principals were amazing. And so I'm just going to say this, there were 8 principals who were removed who were excellent principals. And I had the privilege to work with many of them. And so I think it's more, as Tyra said, about the adults in saying, hey, I told you so. Or look at me, I was able to move this district or this school from this to that. And it's not really impacting the kids because on the news the other day, it had that there's a serious decline in math performance.
Oh.
And that's critical.
Yes, it is.
On that note, I'd like to add something.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
My kids are out of school now.
Uh-huh.
One's 34, one's 24. Now, my problem is this. When I was pretty good at math, I went college algebra. I stopped. Put it this way, I stopped at trig. I was done. But up until trig, I'm pretty good at math. Well, they were sending these kids home with algebra. Now simple multiplication. 100 times 10, you carry the 0 or whatever, and you get it pretty simply.
Yeah.
Well, they were sending my kids home with a math problem that was as long as and I'm going, what are you doing?
Right.
So what my question is to the educators, why did they do that to the kids? Why?
I believe if you're speaking of elementary school, the explanation part, show me your thinking, was what we were told to do in math.
Okay.
So in some way, that is to make sure that kid really understood one is one, so to speak. Okay, so so that they understood how to solve that problem. So we had to ask you to label, make that one problem take a whole page. Yes. Show me your thinking, and that was to help us know that they understood.
My goodness.
And perhaps it shouldn't have been done on every problem.
Yeah.
Perhaps it should have just been a few.
That was
Yes.
cool.
And then also too, now algebra is being children are starting to see algebra in first grade. They're seeing it now much earlier than we did. And we introducing them to algebra. We want them to know that multiplication tables is so much like, don't get me wrong, we learned and we've done well, but the way the world is moving now, I mean, 2-year-olds can work a cell phone faster than we can.
Right.
So the way the world is moving so fast, it's not even time to catch up with all of these different things that you have to learn, because think about all of us as adults. All of our attention spans is very short. Back in the day when we went to school, we had nothing but you sit in that classroom. If it's 2 hours, you're just going to sit there and learn. Well, I mean, within 10 minutes, you hear nobody can sit still. Nobody can stop moving. So everything now is just like kids' brains are always moving. That's why it's like I tell my teachers, you got to give them some opportunities to just breathe, because they're not going to sit 30 minutes straight. They're just not.
Yeah, that's true. And some kids do get bored very easily. So you have to keep going.
I'm the kid. I'm that kid.
Their creative juice is flowing. Okay, guys, I got one more final question, and then we're going to close it out here. This is excellent. I love it. I love it. What
I'm
is the
sorry, Rochelle,
Go ahead.
Coach Rowe, did you see I sent a text?
Oh, I don't have my phone. What was your text?
Okay.
You- ahead.
I'm speaking on behalf of Delisa, not the university. So, yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Did you
if
have
we can
anything?
take that off.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I would.
Of your- Oh, thank you for that, Delisa. Good catch.
Okay,
Yeah, good catch. You are speaking as an individual. Okay, so real quickly, guys, what is the solution, short term or long term, whichever you want to speak to reform our public education system? Like, where do we go from here, and how can society play a bigger role in this reform process?
Okay, I'll go. Two things. Get legislation to lower pupil-teacher ratios in grades K through 3 to start. That is a beginning. And lower pupil-teacher ratios drastically. In Cuba, a kindergarten class is 5 to 8 kids.
Wow.
2, 1 parent, 1 teacher.
Wow.
So that would be a big help.
Yeah, that would make a drastic difference.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, that's a great point. Thank you for that.
I'm going to say, we keep the certification thing, and I'll tell people I'm 50-50 because I came from a different state, had to take the principal certification test. Thank God I took it on the first time and passed it, which people were like, what did you do? Yeah, like, just went there and took the test. But I'm good with test taking. That's never been something. I don't suffer from test anxiety, but I do know people that really do. But we got to pay the people. We're never going to get anybody in the classroom. I mean, if I had to start teaching now, I mean, even when I started back then, I realized I was like, dude, like, how did you survive? But the economy wasn't like it was then, like it is now. I mean, again, a teacher can't even afford to buy a house. And that's pretty sad. I mean, and just one quick thing that I'm going to be done. I have a homegirl who is probably knocking on your number. If I'm at like 22, 23, she had to be like 24, 25. And her daughter just received an offer at her job. And this is only half of the salary that she's going to make just in the interim. That's just what she makes now. She's been here 25 years, and her daughter just walked to college in May. And she was like, this does not make it. We got to pay the people. We got to.
We have to. Absolutely agree. Great point. Thank you for that. And Miss Delisa, what are your thoughts?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Well, what are your thoughts, just as far as any short-term, long-term things we can do to reform the public education system? Where do we go from here?
I
Where do
wish
we
I
even
had
start?
the magic bullet for that. Not the bullet, but the magic wand. I really don't know, because we don't know what the state of education is going to be, even when it comes to the Department of Education. How we're going to address the teacher shortage, because we need teachers, and so it will, I guess, depend on the political atmosphere that we're about to enter, that will determine, the direction in which education is going to go. All we can do is be prayerful, and just trust in the Lord that everything is going to work itself out, and that our children will not be impacted or affected by whatever decisions, and that people keep children first when they make decisions.
Absolutely. They have to be a priority.
That's my prayer.
I love it.
And I want to just add in that last word, they got to use some wisdom. I mean, in every school that I went in, if you know me, you know that I can be.
Oh yeah.
So there are a lot of words that I can use, but I always had to use wisdom when addressing my kids, my staff, and my parents. And I was always big on building a strong culture and community, because my parents needed to know what their babies, and I would always tell my teachers, parents in the best thing that they have in their houses. Trust me, even if they could come in and just tear the entire building apart, but that's what they sent to school, because that was the best thing that they had there. So as an educator, it's our job to love on them, to nurture them and help them from ground zero. I tell them some growth is better than no growth. When I say no growth,
Okay.
Now that's real. That's reality.
That is reality.
That is, yes, yes. They
excellent.
send us their very best. You're right.
they're
you
very
know?
best.
And we have to meet children where they are in
Mhm.
order to bring them up and to grow them.
Yeah.
I'll tell
love
one last thing I'm thinking for real. I had this thing that I had
Preacher, you
this huge.
close this time.
This is my last one. I promise. No, I had this thing where they talked about kids eating in the morning. I didn't care if they came in at 9 o'clock, and even though their parent brought them in there, if that baby says they're hungry, we got bananas, we got oranges. If I have to go buy my pocket, my baby needs to eat, because you cannot think. You know how we are hangry, so you know a little baby can't function. Now, granted, now I'm gonna get with your mom the next time she pull up here and tell her now this baby at 9 o'clock. But guess what? My parents will say, "Well, we know you're gonna feed them."
Yeah.
You got a point, right? But that's where that's the whole child. That's when you're taking care of the whole child. I'm done now.
Yeah. All right.
You sound like a Baptist preacher. You've closed 5 times. But, right, but yet they're cutting funding. They're cutting funding. We could have all kind of. Do they still do the free lunches and free breakfast?
Yeah, oh, it's free. Yes.
It's,
Title I schools. I think the what is it, 85 or 95%. You can be a Title I.
Oh, is it okay? Okay.
Yeah, most schools Title I
Just
schools are
Title I.
free.
Okay.
Yeah,
we got-
they still got their USDA funds. That's how they're funded.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
if they would turn the forms in, that was an issue. The blue forms.
More
Or
paperwork.
fill it out.
Hey, but Lisa, when you send them the
Qualified, but you
incentives
don't
with the
wanna
kids
send in
of
the
if you don't
form.
get this form filled out, it comes back because you get the
Yeah, we had a
that form
whole
comes back.
project on trying to get
Yes.
those. I'm just saying, a whole
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Oh, God. Oh, Carla Eccles says, thanks for an insightful discussion. Glad to see former Wichitan Tara Bowers share her expertise along with other panelists.
Hey,
Thank
Carla.
you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
guys were amazing. So we talked about a lot of controversial issues taking place in our public schools, and in many cases, these issues are getting in the way of children being a priority. Children matter. Positive change is what's needed in schools, and new policies and programs that will effectuate the transformation needed that needs to be in place to empower our children and enable them to discover and maximize their potential to become everything that God created them to be. Public school systems should not be about power or supremacy or political agendas. If officials really want to make a difference in the lives of the students, then they need to uphold the 2 greatest commandments from God. That is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. How can politicians and school officials push Bible curriculum on students when they aren't even walking the talk and acting like Christians and serving God? Serving God is not about acquiring political and cultural power, but it's about being transformed by His power and being humble and peacemakers and provide equal opportunity for everyone to build a better future. Well, that does it for us, guys. Thank you so much to my wonderful panelists. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your wonderful insights. Be sure to follow us and like us on social media. And I love you guys, and be sure to love yourself, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's nice.
Come.
Yes, this was.
1, 2, 3, 4.